Welcome to Chi Talks, where it's all about the energy. And if everything is made of energy, then we have a lot to discuss. So let's dive right in. I'm your co-host, Javi.
And I am Nona, and today's topic is meditation, and more specifically, meditation in the context of Qigong or energy work. Qi as energy and Gong as work. Historically, Qigong developed in 4 different categories classified by the general goals of the energy work of each. The 4 categories or schools of Qigong are medical, scholar, spiritual or otherwise known as religious, and martial. And the goals of each of these being healing and health wellness for medical Qigong, peace, harmonious living of a long life, mostly through philosophy and study for scholar Qigong, enlightenment for spiritual religious Qigong, and the goal being the ability to stop the fist for martial Qigong. We will visit these schools at another time in another show and cover how these 4 schools inevitably overlap with the deepening of a Qigong practice. But for today's talk on Qigong meditation, my co-host here, having trained in martial Qigong, will start off today's talk from that historical perspective.
And before we begin, let's take a second and find that Qigong state. I like to call it relaxed awareness. Let's start with some releasing and relaxing sighs. Deep breath, relaxing, and release. And let's do a total of 3. Take in a deep inhale through the nose. Feel it fill your belly and your chest, and release it to relax. And let's do one more. Draw in that inhale through the nose. Feel the abdomen expand. And then it contracts to release and relax. And so let's get to the first trick. As promised, we have 3 tricks today, helping to bring your energy in. So this trick is called inhaling longer than exhaling. Find yourself in a relaxed position, whether you're sitting, standing, or laying down. Bring attention to your abdomen and notice your breath cycle in coordination with your abdominal movement, expanding on the inhale and contracting on the exhale. Take your time in a relaxed way to slowly draw in the breath through the nose to about an 80% capacity, like drawing it up through a long straw. Exhale naturally to release the breath. This will be shorter than the inhale. Again, you softly pick up the next inhale, like drawing it up through a long straw through the nose. And the abdomen is expanding. Take your time, stay relaxed. And then you exhale to naturally release it. And let's do one more. We're focusing on the inhale. Draw it in softly, as if through a long straw, through the nose. The abdomen and even the pelvic floor expands. And exhale naturally to release it. And in practice, you would continue that for about 10 minutes. You would allow yourself a breath cycle to step out of the technique and to start over whenever needed. And throughout the show, we're going to continue to add the 2 more tricks as we move forward.
And I think one thing to be mindful of as you begin, possibly for the first time, a breathing practice is that you want to slowly build a habit of what we call Buddhist breathing in Qigong. as opposed to something called Taoist breathing, which we might introduce in a later show. This is just referring to deep abdominal breathing. And abdominal breathing is how children and newborns breathe. Many of us, for one reason or another, whether we felt like we needed to hold in our gut at one point to put on that dress or older pair of pants, or if we've experienced some kind of stressor as we grew up through life, or maybe we've spent too much time in a chair. For one reason or another, a lot of us have stopped abdominal breathing for countless numbers of reasons, and have turned our breathing into a more rib cage and diaphragm breathing, a chest breathing. So, a lot of us are dominant chest breathers, and we have to recreate a habit of engaging our abdomen once again for uh, this breath, to bring in the breath. And abdominal breathing is beneficial for countless number of reasons. In abdominal breathing, the rib cage and the diaphragm can relax and be less tense. And as the tissues of the core and the abdomen instead take over, they act as a pump for the upper chest cavity. So if you imagine a piston in a car, the lower abdominal cavity becomes like a piston to create this suction for the breath up above, allowing for the tissues of the chest to be able to relax as if it's a surfer on the wave of the ocean below it. And it also, invites your abdominal walls to work and become more exercised naturally all throughout the day as you do the simple act of breathing. Um, it, Through this process, you get a number of health benefits, including um, the spine being able to move softly with that lower abdominal breathing. This allows for spinal fluid to be pumped. And then the organs also get massaged. And we talk a lot about organ massage during Qigong and how this is very healthy for your vital organs. And then you also, because the chest cavity can be relaxed, you also experience full oxygenation. And with this greater oxygenation, your cells can produce more energy. And, we can refer to science looking at the cells. Respiration at the cellular level, your cells take in 1 unit of glucose, and with no oxygen, produce 2 units of ATP, of energy. So, as compared to under oxygenated circumstances, your cells can produce 15 times more within the mitochondria of your cells. This 1 unit of sugar, 1 unit of glucose can turn into 30 units of ATP. Which is significant. That means more access to energy. And so the more we can oxygenate all of our cells, which involves deep abdominal breathing as well as relaxation of the body and tissue so that the oxygen can reach all of our cells, the more energy we will have. So that's a little bit of the science background behind that.
Now, just a word of caution as we are eager to get started and feel the benefits. Um, we need to be cautious if you experience high blood pressure. Make sure that you take your time for relaxing and releasing the abdomen and the pelvic floor, and also the back with the inhale, just gently hugging to the center on the exhale. Anytime we use our mind's focus and we're eager and we want to engage in Qigong meditation techniques, it can cause an uprising of energy in our bodies. This can potentially increase the blood pressure. And however, this can be counteracted with deep abdominal breathing. So just keep that in your back pocket. This allows for the energy to descend in case there's an uprising of the energy. This balances any uprising and allows for a yin and yang harmonization.
Right. So that uprising could happen if you're new and your mind's really focused. And if your mind's focused, you might find a little tension, right? Whenever you're doing something new, that could happen. So, yeah, abdominal breathing will counteract any of that and bring the focus down again. Um, let's see here.
Now, to get you used to and to have all of these techniques be effective and become second nature, that takes time and work. As mentioned before, Qigong can be translated as energy work. Qi being energy and Gong being the same root word found in Gong Fu. Gong Fu, often said as Kung Fu. So this is time, this is effort, and this is energy to build a given skill. The combination of Qi plus Gong gives us the meaning for Qigong, as taking time and effort to build the skill of working with the energy of the body. And Kung Fu is often said to be an external Qigong practice called Wai Gong, Wai being external as opposed to Nei being internal, Wai Gong. And this is characterized by fast flowing martial techniques of jumping, spinning, kicking, and punching. We've all seen this. The energy is built externally, and this takes its effects inward. This is what's called the yang component of practice, going back to the principles. Anytime there's yang, there is a yin. Now, so what would be the yin practice in this context of martial Kung Fu? Here is a hint. What is the opposite of moving? And you might say, well, not moving, and that is correct. But what does that look like? If you're envisioning sitting meditation, then you're on the right track. Now, I just want to remind listeners, you got it tuned to KMUD. It's 9:15, and I'm Javi here with my co-host Nona, and you're listening to Chi Talks. Now, let's take a historical perspective of sitting meditation. Historically, the martial techniques were cultivated alongside internal techniques by way of the monks in the monasteries of the East. This twofold path of practice, whereby internal and external techniques govern the daily regimen known as dual cultivation. Yin and yang, internal, external, physical, spiritual, seen and unseen. Now, these humble, righteous, benevolent monks aimed to deepen their spiritual cultivation, while on the opposite side of the spectrum, they cultivated elite levels of martial skill. Now, you know how in movies we hear the line, with great power comes great responsibility. These monks embodied this notion. And the monks of Shaolin can still today be seen displaying unbelievable skill. What we do not see and what we now know to have been kept secret were their meditation practices. The practices of sitting meditation were called Neisher Gong Fu, internal skill building. These techniques taught the practitioner of the energetic map of the body and mind. They organized self-governing systems to a peaceful and harmonious state and aimed to harness the vital energy and use it for further practice, especially the more grueling physical and mental practices.
So you might be asking yourself, all right, these monks long ago up in the mountains practicing meditation and martial arts, why does this matter today?
But why? Just fast forward to today and look at the current situation we find ourselves.
Can we draw any lines between the monks of the mountains and to all of us in quarantine today?
We are all potentially spiritual beings walking around in our earth suits. It can be said many of us are confined to establish our own individual monasteries. What shall we do with this time and space that we have in quarantine, isolated? How shall we make the best of it, satisfy our spiritual bodies, live a fulfilling life, manifest our personal potential? The monks of Shaolin and other famous mountains like Mei or Wudang were all confined to isolation in their respective monasteries. They were masters of perpetual quarantine as generations of master and pupil persisted. The hermits of old actually sought out isolation and quarantined situations, the optimal place for working within. And with little distraction, the conditions were such that they could harness the power of their minds and transmute the energy to accomplish great skill. Sadly, in the case of Shaolin, a misguided emperor burned down the temple, and many monks were forced into hiding amongst the laymen of the general population. With this, it is said that the practices have slowly been lost and diluted. And a simple Qigong, I did this before, a simple Google search will yield transitions of ancient documents, but you'd still need to know how to read traditional Chinese writing to gain further access. One of the teachers devoted to or devoting his life to the preservation of these practices is our own teacher with whom we lived and studied, Dr. Yang Jungming. And that brings us to the practice. According to Dr. Yang, the foundation by which we build our body, breath, mental, energetic, and spiritual bodies is what is called embryonic breathing, a form of meditation. And it's often called back to childhood breathing. It aims for singularity or the state of Ujayi. And the vision is that this breathing takes a deep dive into the self to search for that one first cell that was once you. That first part of you, which initially manifested into this physical plane and from which all other cells grew to become you. Like the first cell of a large redwood tree, where would that first cell of you reside? While the physical cell has likely died off, the energetic imprint has not. And so the meditation of embryonic breathing is to search for the feeling of this imprint as a seed. But why, you ask? Now, there are many answers to this question, and this might depend on your goals for practice, your goals for meditation, your goals for inward introspection. And it also depends what category of the four schools of Qigong mentioned at the start of the show you're approaching from. For most of us, as a starting point, I'll answer with another question. How well do you know you? Our teacher, Dr. Yang, often asks, who knows your body better than you? Shouldn't you know yourself better than anyone else? And so, who are you? This becomes the question. And there are countless philosophies and religions that approach this question.
And I think for Qigong, as a starting point, we approach practice from the idea that there are 5 layers to your body. These are the physical body, the breath body, the mind body, which also in Chinese thought includes our emotions, the energy body, and the spirit body. For optimal health, these need to be in harmony. And for this to be achieved, each of these 5 bodies need to be regulated. This is called the practice of 5 regulations. We can think of regulation as having to actively oversee some aspect of the body to bring it into harmony. So in Qigong, for some simple exercises, we may talk about how to move the body, where to put the feet, where to put the hands, how to support the spine, the legs, or the organs. And we talk about breathing in a way that maximizes our oxygen intake and brings circulation to certain parts of our body. And we might also regulate the mind by finding a place to focus it. That said, after talking about regulation and regulating all of these aspects, one of the final goals, however, of 5 regulations is to reach the point of something we call regulating without regulating, or no regulation. So this is interesting, right? So you are in a place of practice where you're trying to regulate the 5 regulations, the 5 layers of the body, which go from the most tangible, the physical body, to the most etheric, the spiritual body. So all of these layers in practice, you are attempting to regulate. But then we want to reach a point of no regulation. What does this mean? So this means that all 5 bodies are finally harmonizing naturally and without need for any oversight, or at least any major oversight. For example, in meditation, one of the regulations that we pay attention to on the body layer, on the physical body layer, is that we place the tongue at the roof of the mouth, just behind the teeth. So, for a lot of us entering meditation for the first time, this is something that we have to consciously do. We have to regulate it. And it takes a long time to actually let that become a habit. We have to be thinking about it until at some point, without us even noticing, we are no longer needing to regulate that aspect of our physical body position for that practice. And we finally have entered regulating without regulating. Because this regulation ultimately comes down to creating beneficial habits, the big picture goal of Qigong is reached when our habits become natural and freely adjust to the needs of each moment of our lives. Most of us are not there. For one reason or another, we have often find ourselves reinforcing habits that are not in the long term healthy for us. We underinvest in those habits that may serve us in the long run and bring us more harmony with the rest of ourselves. I can totally attest to this. I might stay up too late or eat too much of one food or another. So qigong practice comes in to help us establish habits that are beneficial to us in the long run.
And this brings us back to the foundational Qigong practice of embryonic breathing meditation. One of the main outcomes in terms of Qi, as opposed to the body, mind, breath, or spirit, is this type of meditation is the storing and the preservation of one's own energy. Without enough energy or strategic use of one's energy, we're unable to do anything that we might want to do. Embryonic breathing is an activity that shifts focus into the energy centers of the body for sustained charging of the core, which can then be accessed for use in any number of ways as the individual sees fit. And with this might be the root of self-care.
You can contrast this drawing of energy to giving away your vital energy willy-nilly, helter-skelter, whether mentally or physically. In Qigong, we say where the mind goes, the energy follows. And quite literally, a thought of the mind to reach, say, for a cup, sends electrical signals through the body and out to the hand, and the action manifests.
And the mind leads, the energy follows. It's a good rule of thumb that we like to keep in mind. This works for the simple to the more complex. When focused, the mind can be powerful.
A scattered or distracted mind consumes energy stores within. The brain, though it also produces energy, can consume much energy, and random thoughts can account for much of the energy usage. What is known is that less distractions, stress, or grievances pulling on the mental energy there is, the more time and energy that one has for storing and charging self-nourishing.
How many of us are confined to our dwellings and in our minds in fear of future happenings, worried about economics, politics, national, international conflict?
There are two choices. One can continue to give away energy to whatever may be in the mindscape, or one can create a different relationship to these thoughts and train a different type of habit pattern.
For example, worries can call on us to invoke the serenity prayer, where we ask for the wisdom to decipher what we truly have control over, where to step in, and where to let go. In this way, the mountain monks of ancient China reached levels of masterful skill. They mastered the energy of their minds for use in their daily practice in chosen isolation. And this doesn't have to be too much different from our situation today. We're being called to be masters of our minds right here, right now. Yet many of us just lack the skills to do it. Enter practices like yoga, mindfulness, vipassana, and qigong.
So, with that said, I think we're going to be introducing the second breathing trick in a moment here. And this trick, along with the first that we started out the show with, can help you reclaim your mental energy and keep it at this center. And when we say trick, we're really saying it's a breathing strategy. So the next strategy we'll introduce is holding the breath or sealing the breath. The idea is for a few moments to stop the breath after your inhale. You can add this strategy to the first technique that we introduced at the top of the show, which was inhaling longer than exhaling. These two strategies, one or the other or both, can help us enter what we're talking about here today, which is embryonic breathing Qigong meditation, which is a foundational practice for Qigong. We're going to invite listeners to join us in this second exercise. But before we do, it looks like we're entering the bottom of the hour. You have it tuned to KMUD, your community radio in the Redwoods, 91.1. And it's 9:30. You're listening to Chi Talks with myself, Nona, and my co-host, Javi here. And we're talking about meditation from a Qigong perspective. What is happening to your energy? Why do we meditate from a Qigong perspective? And it's a lot to cover in one show. So we'll be probably coming back to this topic another time. But today we're specifically trying to leave you with 3 strategies for how to enter a state of embryonic breathing, which is a deep belly centered breathing where the energy can return to your core from where it might be scattered externally. So we're going to ask our lovely engineer to bring in some of that background music for us. So if a listener happens to pop in right now, we don't have too much silence here as we're breathing and guiding some breathing exercise here on air. All right. So I think what we're going to do is take a moment and invite all you listeners to breathe with us. You can begin by finding a place to settle, whether that is a chair or in a relaxed standing position. If you're standing, go ahead and find a hip width or slightly wider stance, and with your knees having a micro bend, slightly bent so that the energy can flow. And do so without too much tension to the legs. This exercise can even be done laying down. It might even put you to sleep again, possibly. So yeah, we'll start off by settling into what we call the natural breath, not trying to make the breath do one thing or another. And we'll engage the abdomen for lower abdominal breathing after that. once we have relaxed into our natural breath. Okay, so after that, we'll then move into this first strategy we started with at the beginning of the show, and then we'll add the second strategy at the end. But before we start, I also wanted to talk about one more point of body regulation that I already kind of mentioned. It does involve the tongue being placed at the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, but this will naturally happen when you close your mouth to breathe in a way in yoga is called Ujayi breath or ocean breath. Yoga is often called Indian Qigong by our teacher, and I've also heard Qigong called Chinese yoga. So the two are greatly related. It focuses on a lot of the same principles of wellness and cultivation. So we're going to talk about Ujayi breath for a moment. And the strategy is also called ocean breath because it produces a sound that sounds like the ocean. Some people have even pointed out that at a louder and more intense volume, this breath can also sound a lot like Darth Vader. But thanks, Javi. But it is a useful tool, a useful breath, as it is really powerful in anchoring the mind to the breath. So the sound may be audible to the person next to you when you produce it, or it can be so soft that only you can hear it, and it is like the ocean waves. Okay. It's an internal sound. So the way that it is taught to beginners is that we're going to inhale through the nose to just about 75% capacity. And then on the exhale, we're going to open the mouth and breathe out with a ha, as if you're going to fog up a mirror. So it's also okay to lift your hand up in front of your face as if it's the mirror to help you get that image, if that'll help trick your mind into that action. So let's give it a try. We're going to inhale through the nose to about 70%. And then as if you're fogging up the mirror, go ahead and Great. Got it nice and foggy? So now you can get that Ujayi breath. Now to get the actual Ujayi breath, what we're going to do is we'll do the same breath out and then close the mouth partway through. So the actual Ujayi breath, your mouth will be closed the whole time through an Ujayi breath. We're just opening the mouth to help you get the feel of it. So to ease you into the Ujayi breath, we'll do our next inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth with the mouth open, doing our ha to fog up the mirror, and then partway through we'll close the mouth, and you'll start to hear that ocean sound. All right, so let's give that a try. So inhale through the nose, 70%, and then open the mouth and fog up your mirror. And now partway through, go ahead and close the mouth. How did that go for you? Let's try it again. You're going to inhale through the nose. And then exhale, ha, fog up that mirror, and then close the mouth partway through to get that sound kind of at the back of the throat. Great. So now let's try one with the mouth completely closed for the whole time, instead of opening the mouth for the ha, but with the same energy. All right, here you go. Inhale through the nose. Mouth in the same position as if you closed it after the ha, and then go ahead, exhale through the nose. If you've lost the position of the mouth for the exhale, go ahead and return to the open mouth ha, as if you're fogging up the mirror again, and then close the mouth partway through and keep that position of the mouth as you continue your next inhale and your next exhale. Okay, so we're going to inhale through the nose. You can exhale out the mouth to fog up that mirror, close the mouth partway through, and keep that position of the mouth. The tongue should be slightly on the top of the roof of the mouth. Inhaling through the nose, keeping the mouth closed. And then exhale through the nose with that same mouth position. All right. So this could take a few cycles to get used to if you're just doing ocean breath for the first time. Don't worry, it will become more natural and you'll find yourself regulating without regulating that sooner than later. So we'll take a few moments. Go ahead and find yourself in that comfortable position, either in a chair or standing or lying down. And just feel the seat underneath you or the floor or the ground underneath your feet or the surface underneath your body if you're lying down. Just take a moment to just notice the contact points. Settle in, and then for a few breaths, just notice the natural breath. Some meditation traditions will have you place your awareness just under the area below the nostrils, asking you to sense any sensations there. It could be the air passing, the temperature of the air, maybe it feels warm or cool. You can notice any tingling in that area, any changes. Maybe your breath is quicker or slower during any one cycle of the breath. Just continue to notice. And you can notice, close your eyes here if that helps. And continue to notice the breath. Just let it naturally come and go. And you might be able to find a little more relaxation with each repetition. And now go ahead and place your tongue at the roof of your mouth behind the teeth, if you haven't already, with the lips softly touching. Continue to observe this breath through the nostrils. And feel the inhale sipped through the nose. With each breath out, settle into your chair or the ground. And see if you can sense a filling and buoyancy with each inhale. See if you can maintain some of this buoyancy on the exhale, while also allowing the tissues to relax, melt, and settle towards the earth. Inhale, filling. And exhale, settling in and letting go. And the body pulsating with the natural breath. Good. You can continue breathing naturally, and we'll bring in a little awareness to the abdomen. You can do this by just placing your attention there, or by placing your palm over the top of your belly button. Continue breathing. And on your next exhale, we're going to place a gentle intention of drawing your navel back toward your spine, just enough as if your abdominal muscles are hugging your core. So on the inhale, just release and relax that action. Let the belly naturally rise with the incoming breath. And then again on the exhale, just drawing the belly button back towards your spine gently. Engage just a little bit of abdominal muscle action. Inhale, releasing and relaxing. Exhale, just a gentle hugging motion of the belly to the spine. As the incoming breath crests, you can engage that exhale naturally, following that urge to exhale. Your belly will drop towards your spine. And then just let your inhale come in naturally again, releasing and relaxing the muscle action. Continue for a few more breaths. Inhale, letting the belly relax and rise. Exhale, hugging the belly button gently, slowly towards the spine. Now we'll add a little bit more of a quickened pace to the exhale. So on the exhale, you can speed up the muscle action, drawing the navel slightly faster towards the spine. This will make the exhale slightly shorter. So still on the inhale, allow the belly to relax and naturally rise. And then we'll do it again as the exhale begins. Engage the belly button steadily, firmly towards the spine. Release and relax, inviting the slow inhale. Exhale with intention. The belly action should intensify the ocean sound a bit. Allowing the inhale to enter naturally. And then again, drawing the navel ever so slightly faster and steadily towards the spine. Continue for a few more breaths. Now we're going to add the second strategy here for breathing. After your next inhale, allow the breath to softly enter. We're going to stop the breath at the end of the inhale for a count of 1 or 2. 1, 2. You might feel the urge to exhale come, and now you can naturally let the exhale go. And you can aid with the belly button moving gently towards the spine. Maintain some relaxation here. Inhaling, and then at the top of the inhale, filling at about 75% or so, stop the breath after the inhale for a count of 1, 2, and then exhale, aiding the exhale with the belly button gently. Do one more breath here. Inhale. And stopping the breath at the end of the inhale. 1, 2, and then allowing the exhale to follow, aiding that exhale with a slight action of the belly button. And we can go ahead and return to normal breathing here for a few cycles as we end our practice of those 2 strategies for embryonic breathing. Take a few moments here to check in with your body to see how you feel.
So that's completed 2 of the strategies, 2 of the tricks that will help to reclaim your energy, lead it back to the energy centers, and help you store and preserve and continue to charge. And you might have been able to felt there is a yin characteristic to this strategy. There's an internal intention as we allow for the inhale to be longer than the exhale. And we extend the intention of the inhale by holding it for a few beats before we exhale. Now, logically, this makes sense that it would facilitate an inward response of the mind and the energy, a movement towards the center, towards a point of singularity, Ujayi, the goal of embryonic breathing. And remember, this is in contrast to yang movements of directing energy externally, which can consume and deplete.
And as mentioned before, this embryonic breathing practice is at the root of self-care. It can have a nourishing effect on the practitioner. And this self-care is a primary interest in medical Qigong, but it's also a primary interest for the other schools of Qigong as well. So for, say, martial Qigong practitioners, there needs to be a degree of recovery and self-care so that the body can then be pushed to its limits once again. A spiritual Qigong practitioner is looking for that extra energy in order to increase their level of focus and ability to bring themselves closer to an enlightened state. A scholar Qigong is looking for a peaceful mind. And so this embryonic breathing practice of bringing the energy to the center, of conserving and storing energy, is foundational to that Qigong school as well.
So let's return to the monks who developed and harnessed the power of the mind. Today how can we sever the entanglements which rob us of our energy?
In Qigong, to answer the question of how we can sever our entanglements, we can ask another question. How well can we regulate the emotional mind and cultivate a wisdom mind? Now, in Qigong thought, when we speak of the mind, there are two aspects to the mind. This can be known as the wisdom and emotional mind, otherwise known as the horse mind and the monkey mind. In Chinese culture, the horse is likened to the wisdom mind because the creature is known to be solid, steady, very much in the present moment, focused, and powerful with an ability for endurance and stamina. And a horse is also a creature that can be readily guided and directed, be in partnership with, while it also maintains its own keen awareness and intuition. So the horse is likened to the wisdom mind. And then on the other hand, there is the monkey. The monkey is known to be a wild creature and is likened to the emotional mind. They are noisy. They scamper about from here and there, high above the ground, examining what they're interested in, easily distracted, mischievous, and grasping for items for themselves. They screech, they clamor, they chatter, and they grab your attention. So, what is one to do with this kind of monkey mind, the emotional mind? One cannot easily get a monkey to just leave, nor does scolding it do a single thing. And suppressing a monkey, trying to tie it down perhaps, will only make it screech louder. So, what is one to do?
The trick or the strategy to taming the monkey mind, our teacher says, is to give it a banana. What is the banana in this context? It's the breath. We're asked to cultivate the wisdom mind as we master the emotional mind, allowing the two to become in harmony. That which stirs up the emotional stimulation and agitates, taking away from our solidity and peace, steals our minds away from our bodies, our breath, and what is truly present in the moment. Remember, wherever the mind goes, the energy follows. So don't let your thought become an energy pit. In meditation, we liken the thoughts to the clouds. Imagine you're looking up at the sky, you notice the clouds, there's a particular cloud, and for some reason, you use a rope and you lasso that cloud. As it drifts farther and farther, you hold on. And as it aims to drift, it requires more of your energy to keep it close. And as it stays, it takes your energy. We do the same thing to our thoughts as we hold on to them, and they turn into large worries and fears. To preserve our mental energy, we need to cut the rope, let that cloud drift away, and not fight nature. Just like a cloud, thoughts will come, and if you can let them, they will go.
This is a process of relaxing, of cultivating the observant mind, letting go and not letting the energy accumulate and stimulate. It prevents mental knots from forming.
In Chinese, this mental knot is called nian. It is similar to the way an arm or a leg muscle can hold a knot, and if not cared for, they can become energy pits. So how can we do this, you might ask? The monks knew that just with the power of the mind, they could make the body sick, or with the power of the mind, they could heal. What is the nature of the mind?
To answer this question, we'll refer to one of our favorite scientists and speakers, teachers, Dr. Dan Siegel, who is a author and professor of neuroscience. He defines the mind today in modern times as, you have to get ready for this name, this definition of the mind. He defines the mind as an emergent, self-organizing, embodied, and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. That's a lot of words to unpack here. So he says the mind is emergent, as in responsive to the now, changing and continually growing. The mind is self-organizing, making new connections and relationships. The mind is embodied, as in extending into the body. It is relational, extending into the world beyond the body, in the spaces between ourselves and the things we are in relationship with. And it is a process. It's active and changing, non-static, and a non-object. And it regulates the flow of energy and information. In summary, the mind is constantly changing, constantly connecting, extending beyond the brain and even the self, and goes through and does this through energy and info regulation. There are many things that can be discussed further here, including the fact that Qigong is aligned with that idea of the mind regulating energy and information, which might have to be saved for a future show. We haven't even touched on his definition of what a healthy mind is. So we'll have to bookmark Dr. Dan Siegel for a later time. But the point here is that our minds are not limited to our brains, and that in a way, the mind is spatially unlimited.
Now, to enter the embryonic breathing meditation, the first upper energy center needs to be condensed. Then the lower energy center needs to be condensed. And they need to be joined. And finally, the upper center is joined with the lower center in the lower dantian, the lower abdomen. When they've joined and when the breathing is calm and natural, then the embryonic breathing has begun. It is said that if a feather is held in front of the nose, it does not move. Continuing abdominal breathing here is part of the process, as the name embryonic breathing partly comes from likening one to an embryo. This embryo pumps its abdomen to receive nourishment in the womb from the mother. The key to remember is that embryonic breathing is the foundation by which all internal practice is built upon. It is the centering and grounding exercise. It's the home base. It's the anchor. It's the root from where your internal tree will grow. It is the Ujayi place of no extremity. And that brings us to the end of today's Chi Talks. We have included 2 training secrets, 2 tricks to help with deep abdominal breathing for the goal of embryonic breathing. And we'll get back to you on the next show when we talk about balancing more yin and yang and including girdle vessel breathing, yang breathing, to balance this 2 tricks as we give you the last trick.
And I guess the take-home message for today is that without internal cultivation, the external practice is in danger of becoming insubstantial and eventually void of energy. It's because the physical is yang, while the energy is yin. These two must balance and complements to make a whole. So meditation can bring your energy back close to home and could be of great benefit to you, whether you want to get through the day with more vitality, or looking to find a little more peace, or wanting to heal, or looking for something greater. We hope that these strategies can help you bring you closer to what you're seeking. If you're interested in connecting with us, you can reach Javi and myself, your hosts of Chi Talks, at talkingchi@gmail.com. That's talking, followed by a Q and an I for chi, and at gmail.com. talkingqi@gmail.com. We have free classes right now, running every Tuesdays and Saturdays on Zoom. So if you pop us a email, we can send you information. We also have a host of videos and whatnot on YouTube covering these topics on meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, and for Javi, some Gong Fu, martial arts training and conditioning materials as well. And with that, we're going to sign off.
And may the Chi flow freely with you.